Recording in progress.
Thomas? No, it's
Yeah.
Joe. Sorry, Thomas.
That's my brother.
Oh, really? Your brother is Thomas?
Yeah.
Is he younger or older?
2.5 years older.
Older,
But he
huh?
acts younger.
I will have to see that for myself. Okay. 상해 제나 저기 제나라 창조 버도 다네 겹세 나의 진소의 기베 소나기 돌아 펜제 상해 두바 상해 제나 저기 제나라 창조 버도 다네 겹세 나의 진소의 기베 소나기 돌아 펜제 상해 두바라 쇼 상해 제나 저기 제나라 창조 버도 다네 겹세 다의 진소의 기베 소나기 돌아 펜제 상해 두바라 쇼. You know, it's so funny. Yesterday I had dinner with Young Rinpoche, and while we were talking, he told Tom, he said, "Oh, Osel is really traditional." and, and I was like, I said, "Oh, don't let people know." So anyways, so the secret's out. But yeah, I mean, I had a very traditional upbringing, so I do have a little bit of the traditional superstition with me, which I think it's okay, it's nice. I'm not too superstitious, so it should be fine. But yeah, I really believe that the fact that we have the tradition and the pure lineage, thanks to His Holiness Dalai Lama, Lama Yeshe, and Lama Sopa Rinpoche, and all the other teachers and people from FPMT who really supported and have dedicated their lives to maintain and make this available to us, that is precious and has to be kept as like that, pure. But also, I think yesterday we did touch base on branching out and, you know, exploring new ways of kind of presenting what Dharma is, or the teachings of the Buddha, you know, in a different kind of, well, not different, but a new kind of aspect where people can really recognize, adapt, apply, identify with, you know, because that's really the issue. You know? We know we need something that can help us, a technique, you know, a method, but we don't know where to start to find it or to understand it or to apply it or anything. So it is available, it's been available forever, right? But of course, if you talk about karma, then maybe we don't have the karma. So this is what I'm talking about. We have to make the karma for the people, you know. And then of course, if it happens, then they had the karma too. But it's also a little bit of the conversation we're having with the nun yesterday. What's her name, the one?
Angie.
Angie, she left today? Oh.
She covered something.
Venerable Angie, where's she from? So Scotland, that's right, Scotland. Yeah. So, yeah, it's about making the karma. Because if we wait, we're like, oh, it's a little bit like when you say fate, you know, oh, it was fated, or it's destiny. You're taking away responsibility from yourself. So that, in a way, is the easy path. And one of the reasons we're kind of in a process that we are not very clear about. We don't really know what's happening. So yeah, it's important to be aware that it's easy for us to deflect that responsibility by coming up with many names or bypasses. So this, I think, is very important to be aware of how the mind, the mechanism of the mind, because the mind, the ego, so the mind and the ego is linked, and the ego has a self-protection mechanism, right? And that self-protection mechanism avoids you of actually, I don't know what word to use, but neutralize maybe, or identify, I don't know. So the ego somehow hides itself really well. Like, for example, especially with anger. Anger is a perfect example. So with anger, we really give power to the anger, complete absolute power, knowing perfectly well that the result is going to be destructive and not constructive and not productive. Even though anger is a very healthy emotion, according to many people who study, for example, the upbringing of children, education, like Gabor Mate. I am a huge fan of Gabor Mate. His books have helped me immensely, and his talks too. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with him. He's an amazing person, very knowledgeable and very practical. And I really like his methods. And of course, for him, he speaks very clearly about how a child getting angry and shouting is a healthy thing, because it helps them to express, to show, okay, this is my space. This is, that you need to be able to express yourself. So anger is a means of expression. It's like, this is my space, get out. It's as simple as that. And of course, then you have the other aspect, which is fight or flee, right? But that's more of a survival instinct that our ancestors had to use. But these days, we don't really have that so much. So the anger comes up when we feel absolutely 100% justified, right? So we are right, me. So how can you feel that unless you have a huge ego? And I doubt, maybe the Sangha don't have big egos, but apart from that, well, but you know what I'm trying to say, is that the Sangha represents small ego. Whether that's true or not, it's none of my business. But what I'm trying to say is that in general, we don't want to believe that we have a big ego. We want to believe we're humble. We create an illusion to convince ourselves that we're good people. That's why I say bad people think they're good people and they sleep like babies. And good people think they're bad people and they can't sleep properly. It's the irony of life. Of course, it's a funny kind of metaphor. It's not exactly 100% like that. But in a way, there is a lot of irony in life. If you start off just with what provides you life, it's oxygen. So oxygen gives you life, but then it oxidizes you. So it takes away life. It's a little bit the irony. It gives, it takes, So it's part of the process, To be born is to die, and to die is to be born, right? So anyways, all these aspects are there. But then, of course, there's the other aspect of the ego, which we're not very clear about because it hides so well. So it can be described in the texts. People can explain to you the mechanisms and and in the end, if you search, you can't find it. So it doesn't exist. But obviously, there's something there that you really protect. And we care so much about what people think. So basically we care about our reputation, right? But the reputation is really not under our control at all. Today, maybe we have good reputation. Tomorrow, suddenly bad reputation. It's up to people's perspective. We're talking about perception, right? So everybody has a different perception. It doesn't necessarily have to reflect reality, because the reality is something completely different. You have to go through all the channels to create that reality in your head, and it's still conditioned and labeled and projected and blah, 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 blah. So, where was I? Can you go back a little bit? What is it? What? Ego's hiding, okay. The what?
Ego.
You said,
Reputation.
oh, reputation. Yes, perfect, thank you. So, yeah, because I go ahead and then I lose where I was. I'm thinking where to go. So basically, we worry so much about our reputation, but it's not in our control. And we don't worry so much about our character, but the character is completely under control. You know, we can really change our character moment to moment, but we worry so much more about the reputation than the character. Even the reputation is completely out of control and has nothing to do with us, doesn't really represent us. So this is why the character is so important, much more important, because really the character is what matters of who you are, your authenticity. But somehow we sell the authenticity in order to be accepted. Because that's how we are wired. We're wired in tribes. We've been part of something. You know? So that's why social media is so successful. People, they're waiting for the bing, you know, I'm part of the tribe. Yay, somebody cares for me. You know, I'm recognized. I'm loved. I'm useful. I have a purpose. So that creates the dopamine, that necessity of human connection. That's why all of these aspects are so successful. Because we are, like, for example, if you think about it, money is based on human. Everything about money is human, right? What does it represent? Human time, human effort, human space, human focus, right? And what is society looking for? Authenticity. But everybody's selling their authenticity in order to be accepted. So there's an interesting, like, experiment they did. So basically, the first two people, they know about the experiment, right? So then the third person, they're coming, everybody else doesn't know anything. So the third person comes in, and the first two people, they get up and they sit down again. And then they're like, oh, okay. And then the fourth person comes, and then the three people, they get up and then they sit back down again. And by the time the first original two people who are getting up and standing up, they've gone. But everybody coming afterwards, when somebody new comes, they get up and they all sit down again. And nobody knows why. So everybody, all the original people have gone. And all the new people keep doing it. And none of them know why, but they keep doing it. Why? Because they want to be accepted. They want to be recognized as part of the group. But that's how you're wired. That's why religion is so successful, or was. And so many other aspects like consumerism, capitalism. Why is it so successful? You know, because everybody's searching for that. If I have the car that has this shape and that cost, then I'll be accepted. If I have the perfect shave, I was thinking of shaving this morning. If I have the perfect shave, then, you know, oh, I have the perfect perfume, or the or the perfect job. Idealization is our hell realm. You know, to idealize is to set yourself up to disappointment because it doesn't exist. And that's exactly why gratitude is so important. Because if you're grateful, you don't have to idealize anything. And we idealize a guru, we idealize the religion, we idealize everything. And then when we don't get what we want, or we thought what we wanted, we expected what we wanted, we're unhappy. So, but there's no time to be unhappy. Life is fleeting. You know, there's so many things that we spend time on that make no sense. And we know that it's not going to give us happiness or satisfaction because everything is temporary in the end, right? So why do we keep doing it? This is the question. Because of the ego. The ego is camouflaging himself or herself or whatever it is. I don't know if it's a she or he or she. It's probably a they. They're them. So the ego really, it hides really well. And then how are you able to pinpoint it? Right? So for me, one of the very helpful ways is also friends. Friends who tell you the truth. Friends who tell you what they see. You know, that for me, really the definition of a friend is someone who tells you the truth in your face, criticizes you in your face, and behind your back says very good things. What do you call it? Alabar in Spanish. Alabar. Praise. So that's a friend, you know? And we need more of that, because that's really a good way to evolve. But then, of course, if you have a true friend and he says the truth and you don't like it, which most of the times we're not going to like it. We do not like to hear the truth, especially about ourselves. What happens? We probably stop talking to them. Or the ego mechanism convinces us that they're not good for us, or there's something wrong for them, or we kind of unconsciously push them away, convincing ourselves that it's going to be better for us, or we're better people, whatever it is. There is a mechanism, okay, that we very subtly kind of see it and can identify, but we don't heed it. We don't really give the energy. For example, if you want something to happen, you have to invest energy, you have to invest time, right? If you want big muscles, you have to go to the gym every day and fail. But it's not to gain something, it's not to suddenly gain something or become something, it's to maintain yourself. Just the same way you go to work, or you work, or you maintain a business, not to make a lot of money suddenly, no, it's to maintain yourself in business, right? So it's the maintaining. So meditation also is very similar, checking the ego. You know, it's not like one from that, I'm going to find the perfect cave in Solokhumbu, and then I'm going to go there, and then the ego is going to disappear like that. It doesn't work like that. You know, it's something slowly. You know, you have to slowly identify and start pinpointing it in certain circumstances and situations that happen in life. Okay. Coffee break. Does everybody have drinks? Yeah. You had coffee. Okay. Oh yeah, so questions before I continue about the ego? Yeah.
There's one from Zoom from last time.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah.
So Laura asked, to what extent does your choice of career matter? Or is it more important, regardless of career choice, to train your heart, mind, and bring as much compassion and wisdom into your motivation, speech, and action in whatever you do and in how you engage with yourself and others?
Maybe we can do that at the end.
Okay.
Because
I promise.
Oh, okay. We'll do that. Yes.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about people kind of leaving things up to fate and that being a way of bypassing things.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to student-guru relationships, I know for myself, when I'm making a big decision, I check with my teachers and I trust in that advice and to the best of my abilities will follow it. Do you feel like that's also a way of bypassing that responsibility?
Well, I wouldn't call that bypassing. I would maybe, I don't know what name I'll give it, not yet at least. But there is a small percentage of where if things go wrong, then at least it's, you can blame someone else. I've seen that. I have a friend, well, he passed away recently, actually. Max Relic. I'm not sure if you know him. By the way, Mommy Max, she's not doing so well. So please pray for her, okay? She's not drinking or eating lately, sleeping a lot. Anyways, Max Relic, what a personality. Oh my God. This guy, he would go around going from guru to guru, asking the same question until he got the answer he wanted to hear. That is so funny. And then when it didn't work out, he would go back to guru and complain. So I thought that was hilarious. As a child, I was like, wow, this guy. I thought it was amazing, you know? Because he would really go from guru to guru until he heard the advice he wanted to hear. And if it didn't work out, he would go back and be like, hey, you told me this and that, and da 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 da. And I was like, wow, that's actually pretty good method, right? Because in the end, you end up having to make your own decisions because none of the gurus are going to say, they're going to be like, I'm not giving you advice anymore. First of all, you don't follow it if you don't agree with it. And then when it doesn't work out, you come back to me. It's like, I don't want to be accountable for that. What do you say? You complain, yeah, so. Actually, Max really, he told me this story. When I was a kid, I used to love his stories because he was a very interesting person. He had an amazing, very intense life. So he told me one story of this great, because he was obsessed in meeting meditators and teachers, and like he was all the time, taking new gurus, and then kind of like pushing them away. And it's not the real thing. So you like take a guru and then push them away, take another new guru. So I was like a little bit like, this guy, okay, interesting. And he told me one story of how he accepted the new guru. He heard about this great teacher who was clairvoyant. So he didn't believe it. So when he went to see him at the entrance, when he came in, he was thinking all these insults. He kept, in his mind, he kept repeating all these, like, I'm not going to say what words, but horrible words, very French, in his mind. And then, so to see whether that teacher had clairvoyance, and the teacher scowled at him really bad. Like made him really bad face. And then he suddenly changed his thoughts to positive ones, and the teacher smiled and said, okay, come sit down. And he's like, wow, he is clairvoyant. Like, so anyways, so yeah, talking about that, your question. And for me, I used to really follow 100%, so like travel dates or whatever, but then even for me, like some people even ask me questions, what color should my car be? Like, what color car should I buy? So I stopped answering any of these like questions long time ago. But I know many people who still do. With Rinpoche, with Lama Supa Rinpoche, while he was alive, I would always ask him, but I would make my own decision. So I'd ask him to see if it coincided with what I felt. And even if sometimes it didn't coincide, if I still had that strong feeling, I would follow my feeling. Because I do have to take responsibility for my decisions. It's very easy for somebody else to make the decision for you. Sometimes the decision of the guru is the hardest one for you. Because sometimes the guru can see in the future, 1,000 years from now, the result of that decision. So maybe it doesn't always make sense. And for me, that's a bit confusing because I'm conventional, you could say. It makes more sense for me in this moment to think in a more conventional way, even though I do know there's the ultimate aspect, but I'm not at that level, so I have to be practical. And so in that case, yeah, I think trusting somebody, if you trust him enough, it can be good. I don't know if it's healthy, but it can be good. The result can be good if you don't feel you're capable of making certain decisions by yourself. Because of course we are wired in a way that our parents have been making decisions for us as a child, and then sometimes we don't grow from that. For example, with my child, he's been making his own decisions since he was maybe 3. I mean, not which school he's going to go to or what he has to eat or where we're going to live or any of that, obviously. But he does make his own decisions. When he does something wrong, I ask him, what do you think? Is this good or bad? Would you like if someone did that to you or not? So for example, the first time he drew a graffiti on the wall, I was like, yeah, that's amazing. I took a photo. I was like, congratulations. Like, now you're going to help me clean it. But I then was like, yeah, you drive on the wall, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Awesome. Your first graffiti. Let's take a photo. Da, da, da. He was super happy. And I said, now you help me clean it. And he was still happy. It's like, okay, But, sometimes that's how, if he wants to create his chemistry lab in the middle of the sitting room, that's fine. I'll just say, okay, go out into the garden. Do in the garden. But I'm not going to be like, hey, you're painting the walls. You're doing this. You're doing that. Because that's part of his process. He has to feel he's makes his own decisions in a way because, for example, I never made decisions in my life as a child, ever. So for me, it's a big issue. So that's probably one of the reasons, everybody made decisions for me as a child. And yeah, he's quite mature, he's teaching me a lot of things that I already knew, but I never told them to myself. I mean, I kind of did, but I never listened. But when he says it, I listen because I'm like, oh, the time has come to take responsibility. Yeah. Mm. But like even now, Lama Zopa is not there for me to consult with him, but I have the same kind of feeling when I make a decision. Even though he's not there, I kind of learned how to make decisions. Also understand, I think it's just really psychology. It's what do you call that pill? The pill that cures you, that doesn't have anything. Placebo. I think it's a little bit placebo. Because really, in the end, you are the creator of your reality, right? So we have the most powerful creative tool in the universe, which is the mind. So all material can be manipulated by the mind very easily. So basically, I think as long as you trust your gut and your heart, and the decisions that you make are based with a pure intention, with an objective not a selfish objective, I think that results will always be good. But you have to be aligned. Otherwise, the universe is not really going to respond in the way we want. I don't know if it's true or not, but quantum mechanics starts talking about the same thing, It's like, if you say, I want, it means I don't have. So then the universe says, you don't have? Okay. But if you say, I have, then the universe says, okay, you have. So you have. If you say, I need, I want, I hope, But instead you say, I have. So, for example, for me, I'm a gazillionaire in merit, in my mind. It's true. I have everything. I don't lack of anything. So I have abundance, and I don't have that concept of need, need for love, need for attention, need for this. Of course, it does come sometimes because of the ego. It's there, but at least you identify. This is not healthy. This is not necessary. This is not part of what's really going to make me not unhappy. The more you feed the needs of the ego, the more you cause the conditions for that not unhappiness to disappear. So in other words, you start to become unhappy. But of course, unhappiness and non-unhappiness is temporary. I say non-unhappiness because it's easier to achieve than happiness. Because happiness is a temporary thing, so it's like this concept of having to achieve something somewhere, and it's temporary. And try to escape from something which is suffering, but it's also temporary. So we get stuck in between this conflict, and that's part of our reality, So we're trying to escape. It's like saying, okay, I love this example because it really is metaphorically clear. It's like being in a river. The river is flowing, life is flowing, change is happening all the time. And then we're saying, no, I'm immortal. I mean, we all act like immortal, I guarantee. And and we know we're not immortal, but we act like one. So we're just like sitting in the river and we're like, no, I want to be here forever, in this spot, in this location, right? We want to be young, forever young. There's even a brand called Forever 19 or something like that. What's it called? Forever 21. Like, oh, Forever 20. Oh, I buy clothes in Forever. I'm going to be 21 if I buy clothes there, like. Did you ever think that? That's psychologically? You feel young if you buy in Forever 21? I don't know, it's just, but that's the thing, the subtle mind of psychology, if you study it properly, it's so illegal. Publicity and what was publicity, what do you call it? Marketing, all of this stuff should be completely illegal. It's like really, because if you start to understand, the Dharma really talks to you about the subtle mind, I realized that, wait, what was I talking about just before? Just in case so I can go back. But right before that, oh, the river, okay. Yeah. Now I forgot where I wanted to go. Okay, I'll just stick to the river. Then we'll come back. So basically it's like saying, okay, I'm immortal. And I want to believe that. And I want to be here. I want to be forever 21. And then, of course, the nature of things is the opposite. Nature is a river that's moving. And that is a beauty of life. There's a mystery. We don't really know. There's a lot of theories, but we don't really know what will happen when we die. But we've all died, and we will all die. We'll all have that experience. Don't worry about that. It's nothing to worry about. It's very joyful. You know, like from what I know people who've died and come back. And every single one of them have told me that they didn't want to come back. They're like, oh no, I don't want to go back. But I have unfinished business, so no choice. But everybody who died, they said the experience was so good. They really, really did not want to come back. So don't worry about that. You know, I know the fear of the unknown is an issue because that blocks us a lot. And it does create a certain reality. You know, if you make decisions based on fear, you're making decisions from a very low frequency, you know, and of course the universe is synchronized with that. That's what I'm talking about, you know, that's why do you think it's universal, right? Universal, what does universal means? It means it applies to everybody in the same way. You know, why did Bob Marley say one love? It means because it's the same love that each person feels and can experience from one side of the planet to the other, right? Lama Yeshe called it big love, right? Which means universal, big, maha, right? So what happens is that we really believe we are immortal, and then we're like, oh no, I want to stay in the same place forever. So what is that? Maybe there's a rock, maybe there's a branch. We hold on for dear life, right? I want to stay like this forever. We get so attached. That's why the more you know, the less you need, right? And I think Tom Wagner would know that. Where's Tom Wagner? He's not here today.
Not today.
Yeah, he knows about that. Yeah, so basically, the moment we start clinging to this concept of identity, that's when the suffering starts coming in. Because there's a conflict. Because we are constantly changing, right? You are being, you aren't, it's not like, oh, this is you and that's who you're going to be forever. Oh, I'm Osel and I'm Osel for X amount of time, whatever time span I live. That's it, that's who I am, right? But that's not the actual reality. The reality is we're changing constantly. And we have to learn how to adapt to that change. And that is the beauty of life. That's what Dharma is teaching us. Dharma helps us to adapt positively to any situation by transforming our attitude and our perspective. You know, basically get over it. That's what Dharma is telling us. So why, even though we are aware of that, we keep repeating the same patterns? That is a question you have to ask yourself. So eventually, the river is going to, what is the destiny of the river? To end up in the ocean, right? So if you're in the river, you're going to the ocean, whether you like it or not. However hard you cling to a spot, you will end up in the ocean. That's how life works. That's destiny, right? That is destiny. The only guaranteed thing in life is that we will die. That's the one thing that I can guarantee you 100%. So if it's something that's going to happen unavoidably at some point, why are we so worried and give so much power to that fear of the unknown? To such a point that we want to maintain, I mean, people, do you see what they do to their faces? That is insane. Like personally, I don't understand, seriously. Why would you go to such lengths to make yourself even more ugly? You know, my father, he's a very funny man. He said one time, he said, oh, I have the perfect name for a gym. said the perfect publicity for a gym, you know, it's a gym. And he said, and I said, what is the slogan of your gym? And he said, are you tired of being fat and ugly? Be only ugly. The Spanish humor. Right. But this is the thing, you know, society pressures us so much to have an idealization, a level of what we think beauty is. But even the same models whose photos are up there want to be like that, because that photo is a result of hours of makeup and hours of Photoshop. So the same model sees a photo and she's suffering because she's not like that. She knows it. And everybody else is looking at that person who does not exist and wants to be like them, or at least compares themselves. And the men too. You have a beer belly and you see a Calvin Klein publicity, you get depressed. Right? Anyways, but that's how it is, you know, somehow we let ourselves be brainwashed and programmed and wired in such a way that we keep doing it in a loop. So even Dharma sometimes can't even help us, because we use Dharma as a bypass to escape whatever it is that we're trying to escape, which is actually ourselves. In the end, it comes down to that. So the fact that you're trying to hold on to the river is the same reason. Is you want to have an identity in order to put that concept in a box. Because for us, it's very important to put things in boxes. Because if we put things in boxes, then we feel we're in control, which of course is an absolute illusion. You can't even control any of the organs in your body, first of all. Can't control your mind. And then, so of course, we are convincing ourselves of something that's complete illusion, complete unrealistic. But we want to believe it, and that is why we have an inner conflict. And that's where a lot of things start. And we keep trying to maintain that, because it's like the fight inside of ourselves with our own ego. You know, so the fight of selling our authenticity or actually being authentic, worrying about our reputation or really taking care of our character. You know, this is a conflict. You know, taking responsibility or letting others take responsibility for us. It's much easier to follow than to lead. But we are all leaders of ourselves. We are all the captains of our sailboats. But we don't really feel we are, what do you call it? That we are, you know, be good enough to do it. What do you call it? Qualified? Capable. Yeah, we put ourselves down in a way. You know, we do limit ourselves, but that's also our upbringing. That's also the education. You know, self-esteem. Yeah, our self-esteem, of course. For example, that, you know, operating your face or doing all these things is for also self-esteem, and the self-esteem is based also on the ego. So the ego has a counterproductive aspect. We feed the ego, and then the ego is never enough. You know, it's never enough. You can feed it. That's why people, you know, like there's never enough wealth. Like some people, they can't spend their wealth in a million lifetimes, and they still can't take care of their workers, who are the ones who gave that wealth to them, created that wealth. The workers. They don't have this concept of appreciation to the workers. You know, I don't want to say names. But you know, and then they idealize this person. Why? Because he has so much what? If there's famine and there's thirst, money has no value whatsoever, at all, unless it's cold and you need to burn some fire. It's true. What is the value of cash if there's no food or water? Tell me. Can you eat the cash? Maybe you can eat the paper. I don't know. Like Charlie Chaplin, he ate the sole of his shoe. Remember? It's a great chapter. He's so hungry in winter, he doesn't know what to do. He realized the sole of his shoe is leather. So it's like, oh, it's like a steak. So the whole thing is about him eating the shoe leather. Yeah, so we have to identify every day. It's not all like suddenly, oh, boom, 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 oh, epiphany. No, every day we have to pinpoint, we have to locate, we have to observe, we have to analyze, we have to check every day, at least minimum 20 to 30 times a day, minimum. When you wake up in the morning, the best meditation you can do is gratitude. Do not pick up your phone when you wake up the first thing in the morning. Please. Seriously, most of us probably do it. And I tell you, in 2006, there were no phones. I mean, not at least the ones that we had today. The lifestyle was very different. Since we have lived entering of the phones into our lives, and the screens, the dopamine creating thing, all that. We actually talk about that in the hack retreats. We touch base. The phones are all confiscated. Not confiscated, but you give in the phone the first day. You can recover it at the end of the day, every day, if you want. But we recommend to leave it till the end of the retreat. But every single retreat, I've had issues in taking people's phones. At least 25% or 30% of the people are not willing to use the phone, including the administration or the people who come to the course. People are so attached to their phones because it's one of their main dopamine creators. Dopamine and what else? Oxytocin and not oxytocin. Serotonin. Oxytocin comes from exercise, right? Love, human connection, yeah. Fulfilling, feeling fulfilled, did something. Anyway, so that it's very important to understand also how the chemical in our brains work, because the brain is an organ, right? So I mean, like, you can go to meditate in a cave, but if you're not drinking proper water and you're not having a proper kind of like, unless you're realized and you're just having the Cholen pills, then you could actually fall into depression very easily. You know, and it is the case for some people. So I think everything is complementary, you know. It's very complementary, the food, the exercise, the mindset, your attitude, you know, how you see things. So you have to work on at least on the two doors, the mind and the body, and then the speech will come automatically. You know, if you work on those two, then the speech automatically becomes purified. I mean, that's what we have, you know, that's really, that's all we have. And what else do we have? Our values, our memory, our karma, and the three doors. You know, body, speech, and mind. What else do we have? Anything else that's actually really ours that we can take to the next life? What else? Anything else? Our light, our soul, yeah, the clear light. So really, even the body is just temporary. The body is like, it's, what do you call it? It's the body is controlled by the spaghetti monster, they call it. Do you see that post? It looks like spaghetti, it's like you know. But it's actually to understand the, you know, impermanence, and to understand how ephemeral everything is, you know. It's very temporary, but at the same time it seems so solid. So all of these things, if you analyze slowly every day, it's going to make you feel much better, because you're not going to give so much importance to things that sometimes create a lot of conflict in your life. Especially, you know, our mind, if it has that cycle, that if it's wired that way, we always go back to what's familiar, right? So for example, if you had a very tough childhood, or you have a lot of trauma from your childhood, it's much easier for you to go to the conflict than go to the harmony or the peace of mind kind of thing. Why? Because it's more familiar. So that's why, you know, the habit alignment, that's why they created I feel it does help. I mean, that's exactly what I needed and still need, is to align my habits. Because really we are creatures of habit. You know, everything starts there, you know, even the mind and the body adapts to the habit. Even if you do something one time, the second time is going to be much easier than the first time. For me, the worst kind of job that I can have is a job where I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I hate that. That for me is like I've suffered so much in jobs where you don't know what you're supposed to do the first 2-3 days. And once you know what you're supposed to do, you enjoy, you're happy, you know, you feel it's easy because you know what you're, you know. But the first time when you don't know what you're supposed to do, it's so hard, right? Not knowing how to do what you're supposed to do. You know, so for me, for example, when I didn't know what I was supposed to do, time would go so slow. Once I know what I'm supposed to do, 8, 9, 10, 12 hours would pass like that. I used to work as a cook back. So yeah, that was really tough. Working as a cook was really tough. But it was a great experience because it really helped you to see also, you know, how hard it is. You know, I would work 9 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, and I'd be paid 600 euros a month. So yeah. But anyways, you have to start somewhere, right? But there's many worse cases, obviously. And of course, and sometimes you think, you know, like, you're like, wow, in the West, children are so lucky. You know, actually, somebody asked me that in an interview in Spain. And I said, I don't feel that. And they said, why? And I said, because in the West, many of the kids, you know, they're in front of screens. And now, back in the days, yeah, you had to fight with the kids to come back into the house. Now you have to fight with them to get out of the house, right? And so in the end, if you really check the values, a Western kid, he doesn't really learn to be independent because the parents do everything for him. But a Tibetan kid, for example, by the age of 7, they're already doing half of the chores in the house, including planting, harvesting, cooking, cutting, washing, cleaning. They're 7 years old and they feel so good about it. You can see it, that 7-year-old kid, but man, oh my God, is he mature? You can feel it, just even the posture, the way he looks at you, he's so sure of himself. Because he's independent. I mean, always, he's not independent, but emotionally, there is a certain independence that he does have. Right? Yeah, I think, yeah. There's a certain independence that he has that is given to him by those actions, you know, because he knows he's offering to society. It's a collective. Like the Asians are all about the collective. The Westerners are more about individualistic mindset. Both have the pros and cons. But what I'm trying to get to is that, for example, in India, you see these children running in the countryside. They have tiny homes. All the walls are full of cow shit, cow dung, you know, because that's what they use. They take the cow dung, they slap it onto the walls. Once they dry, they use it for firewood. You know, so that's how they cook. They cook with the cow dung. But everything is completely, the cycle of nature is completely goes together, at least until plastic arrived. Then things started changing a lot. But you'd see these kids who have nothing, but they have the biggest smiles, and you see they're healthy, they're happy, they're eating organic food. They have nothing, but they have everything. And then you see the Western children who are stuck inside the house, and they're with the screens, with this, with the internet, with the Wi-Fi, with the mobiles, with the, you know, like the whole shenanigan, right? And you say, really, who's happier, who's more lucky? So these things make you start to think. Another story. I did this documentary about a guy who was born blind. And this is a very nice story for me because it really changed my mindset, the way I saw things. So in the interview, I wasn't directing that documentary. I was the camera for that documentary. But the girl who was directing, one of the questions she asked was, what is your happiest moment in your life? Because the guy, he was born blind, so he was married, he's successful, he had a job, you know, and he would explain he was such a happy person, you have no idea. Crazy. So happy. It was just like you'd get pumped up, you know, you'd actually get really pumped because you would say, wow, if he can be that happy there, I mean, come on. And he would be like, yeah, this is how I watch movies, and you turn on, and then he'd be like listening the description, and then they come, and he'd be like, oh, this, that, oh, and I'm like, what? How can he enjoy a movie so much and he can't even see it? But he is so happy. So, anyways, so when they asked, what is the happiest moment in your life? He said, one time that when he was younger, him and his friends from school, they were doing a trek in the forest. And they got to a point where supposedly there was what do you call it? Charco, we say in Spanish, charco, un charco de agua? A puddle. There's a puddle of water. And they said, okay, just go to the tip and you jump because it's a small puddle. He's blind, right? So all his friends, they all were there. Yeah, just get to the tip and you jump. It's a small puddle. So he got to the tip, he jumped. It was a huge puddle. He fell face into the mud completely. He was lying down in the mud, and all his friends were laughing their asses off. And that was the happiest moment of his life. And when he said why, he said, because they treated me as one more. They didn't treat me like I'm weak, like, oh, I'm blind, oh, be careful, we have to be protective, we have to take. No, they treated him as one more. So they laughed. And they said, oh, he's blind, so let's make fun of his blindness. And, you know, and at the beginning, at first time, you say, well, that's so cruel, that's so mean. But then when you actually understood why that was the happiest moment in his life was because for him, he was one more. And that is what he was looking for, to be accepted, not to be treated differently. And what? Yeah, one more, one of them. One of them, yeah. So that for me really started to help me to start to see that maybe there's many different aspects of things in general, you know. Because really, the intention of his friends was not to harm him. It was to make him feel as one of them, right? Yeah. And that for me was really a very big wake-up call. Because there's so many things that we don't understand or that we assume without really trying to understand. That's what I studied in communication. I studied in Cabrillo College here in how many years ago? I don't know. Some years ago. Maybe 8 years ago. And I studied communication. And in communication, they said the most important aspect of communication is listening. Because most people listen to answer, they don't listen to understand. And that's a fact. And most people think that the important part of communication is talking. It's not, it's listening. So anyways, what time is it? 11:30 now? So how much do we have? We have an hour yet? Oh, good, okay. Yeah, how is it? Everything's good? Are you happy? How is it? Are you happy? Happy hippie. Yeah, so I just wanted to touch base on that, you know, on the ego, how the ego is a little bit tricky because it camouflages itself really well, especially when the emotions come up, you know. So really, it's not about saying, oh, you know, like, oh, this destructive emotions is bad, da, 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 da. I mean, eventually, of course, I'm sure we can neutralize it and integrate them in such a way that we use them, right? In the Dharma, I talk sometimes, you know, like the ego, you can use the ego. You can use it as a tool. I want to become enlightened in order to help other sentient beings to become enlightened. Right? There are aspects that are useful. You just have to put it to work. It's a little bit like the mind, you know. If you don't put the mind to work, the mind is going to be a monkey or a crazy animal that's a wild animal that's undomesticated. So really, it's put the mind to work, you know, put everything to work. Give it a purpose. Channel it. At least at the beginning. For me, it works a little bit like that. So when I get angry, for example, I identify the anger. I don't just vent it out. I try to identify, I try to look at it, I try to really understand the mechanism. Where does it come from? Many times, it's not just the ego that's trying to protect itself. Sometimes it's also your heart. You know, there's so many different subtle things that are happening within us constantly. And there's so many dimensions too that are happening all around us constantly. So to think in the way that, oh, you know, it's just my perception is like this and this is the reality, it's very small-minded, you know. And to really get so attached to our identity is also a little bit small-minded, because that's really going to be the beginning for a lot of problems. Because that identity doesn't really exist. It's always changing. We want to identify ourselves with something so we can relax and say, oh, I'm in control. Basically, that's the issue. And the thing is that to let go, to stop giving so much importance to what people think, to what people say, what people do, what don't do, you know, to let go a little bit of this pressure that we give ourselves. We are in tension in a way, because we are not enough sometimes. We're not enough. But then the ego comes in and it's like, oh, we are huge. We are the most important thing in the universe. Right? We're the center of everything. So really is to find a balance in between, and to identify really what is the mechanism of the heart, the gut, the instinct, and what is the mechanism of the ego. Sometimes the ego hides behind the mechanism of the heart. It's a little bit like the light and the dark. If you really want to find darkness, you go to the light, because that's where the darkness hides. And many times it's artificial lights. The darkness hides in the light, I tell you. I tell you. I tell you. And the light, if you want to find the real light, the strong, powerful, the real light, you go to the darkness. That's where the light is, saving and helping the people in the dark. Some of the most amazing people I've met in my life, I've been in the most dark, dangerous situations that I've experienced. Some of the most dangerous, dark places, like favelas and ghettos and things. I've been all over the place. I love to travel and discover, connect with people of all different levels of society. I also lived on the street for a few months in Naples, which is quite a dangerous city. I actually saw an assassination one time. 2 shots here, 2 shots here. At 4 a.m. Right next to where I was staying. Anyways, but you know, so, I don't know where I'm going right now, but basically, no,
That's like a recommendation.
no, I don't know why I'm bragging, actually. But yeah, I don't know where I was going, something. Can we back up a bit? What?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, so basically I've met some of the biggest hearted people, the most amazing, kind-hearted people in the most dangerous, dark places you could ever imagine. And I'm talking from experience. So I do know, as a fact, sometimes, you know, I'm very careful sometimes, you know, with really, you know, oh, the light, you know, it's, you know, you do have to watch it a little bit, because many times that does happen, you know, people use, you know, the light in order to hide and manipulate. So, I mean, if just look at history. You know, we're still in the same crusade 2,000 years ago. Still happening now in the same locations. And the crusades are between 2 religions. And the founders of the 2 religions is Jesus and Muhammad, and both of them are huge heart people, amazing people, pure heart. And what they're doing in their name is completely the opposite of what they could have ever imagined happening. Like, I said this, and that is happening, right? They're fighting wars in the names of gods, of their prophet, or of Jesus, or this and that. I don't think they would ever agree with that. I don't think Muhammad, or if Jesus and Muhammad got together, they'll be like, what is going on? So, I mean, that's just a perfect example, you know, of that kind of aspect of saying, you know, like, I have the ear of God, and now I'm going to tell you what to do. But mainly the main kind of agenda is to maintain power, to be in power, you know, using that kind of aspect. So for me, that is like the dark side of the institution. You know, that is a little bit where like using that path, right, in order to control and manipulate people. And that I think is very important to identify. And that's why the true religion is inside. It's not a materialistic place or location. Really, why does a place become spiritual, a place of pilgrimage? It's because of the faith of the people. The people are making the location a spiritual place, not the place itself. All spirituality starts from the people. You know, really money, what does it represent? Why does money have a value? It's because it's based on the effort of people. Why does religion have a value? Because it's based on the faith of the people, the belief of the people. Why do 200,000 strangers go to war for an imaginary line that's called a border? And where is the border? Suddenly today the border is here, tomorrow is over there. But it's so real, just like money. It's so real for people. So the Homo sapiens, they do believe in this fantasy. They all come together for one fantasy. That's why religion is so successful. You know, because I'm not saying religion is a fantasy. There's many aspects. Basically, the main aspect is a technique that you can apply to yourself, which is universal. And that's all the religions. They have the same pillar, the same base, which is love, right? The golden rule. But of course, you have to be aware of all these things and really say, okay, the origin. The origin, where is it? It starts here, in each one of us. And what is everybody looking for? Human connection. So start with yourself. Connect with yourself. And everything else will fall into place. And start to check, you know, every day, a little bit. In different situations, when something happens, somebody tells you something, maybe some emotion comes up. And instead of reacting to that emotion and giving power to that emotion and feeding it, like take a breath and observe, check, you know, because that emotion is telling you something. It's a mechanism from inside. It can be the ego, it can be the heart, it can be something based from childhood trauma that's activating, and you need to understand that process. You know, that's why therapy is also very important, you know, but first of all, therapy with yourself. Because if you don't really love yourself, you don't take care of yourself, I mean, nobody can help you. If you don't want to learn, nobody can teach you. Yeah. Okay, so we can do some questions if you want. Yes.
I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about what you mean by character.
Okay. Character. She says, can I talk more about character? Yeah, so character. Character is very linked with karma because it's based on decision making. Karma is all about decision making, right? I mean, there's different types of karma, but the subtle karma, collective karma, but the individual karma, the gross one that we can see clearly is you do something and the result comes, right? And many times you can see it. You can see how, but also because our own mind creates the imprint, and then that imprint is activated by our own perception kind of thing. So karma really works with our view. So for example, if you do something bad and you think it's good, the karma is not as bad, right? Because of the intention. So the character is linked to that. So what is your character? It's your decision making, basically. You know, based on your intention. So for example, let's say, examples. I love examples. So my character, I'm somebody who's giving you advice that is convenient for me, not for you. I know that the advice I'm giving to you is not convenient for you, but it is very convenient for me. But I'm giving it to you as if it were convenient for you. I'm manipulating, right? And I know it. So what kind of character does that make me? You know, what kind of karma am I creating? And that is something that I'm going to know. Even if you don't know, I know it. That's with me, right? And I have to live with that. I have to accept the fact that maybe my character is a little bit, what do we call that? I don't know. Sketchy. What was the other word? Sociopath. Well, that's a little bit exaggerated. But actually, you got the point. We all are a bit of a psychopaths. Every single one of us. Because we're just watching and allowing all this to happen without doing anything about it. So anyway, we could all be psychopaths. I mean, I'm not sure you could really translate that. Sociopaths? Okay, I don't know the difference between one and the other. Oh, without the conscience. Okay, sociopaths, yes. Okay. Okay, well, I'm learning new words today. That's good. Yeah, so that, but it's just an example. It's for you to really think, what is happening? Right? I mean, at least, for example, in France, when it comes down to money, farmers really activate themselves. When it comes to their rights and this and that, I mean, it's not all 100% positive. But the thing is that when there's an interest, people come together and do it. But as long as you're in your comfort zone, we're a little bit like sociopaths. We just allow things to happen because we have light, we have electricity, we have water, we have internet, we have a roof, we have a job. So that's a comfort zone. So it doesn't matter what's happening in another country, even if there's an extermination, if there's a whole, things are happening. It's outside of our comfort zone. So therefore, we don't really do much until it affects us. I guarantee you, if tomorrow they cut your light, your electricity, and they cut your water, you're going to start going out into the street and making a big deal out of it. But only when it starts affecting your comfort zone. So anyway, but that's completely something different. But the character, I feel, is like that. It's like, really, when you do something, what is the intention behind it? So really to focus on that, because many times we convince ourselves we're good people. No, really. That's why maybe many of us say, oh, yeah, I'm Buddhist. I'm joking. I mean, half joking. But this is the thing. So really be sincere with yourself. You want to have a good character. The first step is be aware of your own bullshit. Sorry about my French, but I think I really like that word. It's the English vocabulary, you have to use certain words for people to understand. I'm not sure if Venerable approves, but I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
So there's a saying, and I'm never quite sure where it comes from. Last I heard it was from Mahatma Gandhi, but it's thought becomes, if people are familiar with it and help me with it, thoughts become words, words become actions, actions become character, character becomes destiny.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah.
Something that.
Yeah. Yeah, like this, many people now these days, a theory with quantum mechanics say, if you want to become a millionaire, first write it down, I'm a millionaire. Or it's funny, like for many people, like it's like so important to become millionaire, but I tell you, it's probably more realistic to become enlightened or attain emptiness in this lifetime than becoming a millionaire. That's good news, right? It's so unrealistic, but people idealize like this concept. But most of the people who are millionaires, I guarantee you, they're quite unhappy because the more you have, the more problems you have, and the more you worry about maintaining it and who's authentic or not in your life, or the people who come into your life, if they're the real deal, if they're there for interests or they're there because they love you. And then of course your children are fighting for this, or you can't take it with you for the next life. All these problems and issues. But somehow if you really give the same value as people give the value to money, you give it to your inner values. It's like the gold. You share the gold, it multiplies. The inner values, you share them, it multiplies. Nobody can steal it. And you can take it with your next life. Whatever values you practice this life, you will have them next life. That's the imprint. Right? So what was the question again? About the character? No, but you were saying something, no?
I know it's difficult to put words to certain states. It's just, words. We all have different interpretations, but would comment about the difference between essence and personality.
Essence, what does that mean?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Essence of what?
Character feels like it's an intentional learned behavior.
I think, okay,
And essence is your natural state of being before you're indoctrinated.
so the clear light.
educated, or
So you could say like the essence is the clear light. If you want to translate it. So, the soul, praise the Lord. Hallelujah. Amen. So the essence and the character. That's so interesting. Actually. I never thought of it that way.
essence is pure light.
Interesting. This is why this is a discussion group. So come on, guys. Please, please, please.
When I make a decision to do something,
Mhm.
make a decision, so using my mind. Then sometimes that decision I think comes from ego, but maybe it's very good at hiding itself. And then I'm always trying to figure out, how do I make a decision from my true self, from my, like you're saying?
Yeah, but maybe that's because you have a mechanism that hides, like kind of, it's, okay, I can only say from my perception, right? So I can see how I function inside of myself. So that's how I kind of try to understand, maybe, I don't know if it's the same or not. But in my case, I have to really get down in the way, like push, all the way till I grab it, you know, by the neck or whatever it is, and be like, no, okay, I see you.
How do you do that?
By insisting a lot. You have to be realistic with yourself, right? So if it just and accept it in the end. If it's because you're lazy, say, okay, I'm lazy. Or because you have fears, okay, I have fear. Or because maybe I just don't like that person. And then you just have to accept the fact. And then once you accept it, it starts disappearing almost. Because it doesn't have that much importance. You know, once you identify, it's almost saying like, okay, I want the red car. Once you have the red car, it's not so important anymore to have the red car. Say, for example, somebody, or maybe they have some money, they want to buy a Ferrari and show off with the Ferrari. So for them, it's very important to have a Ferrari. But the owner of Ferrari, he couldn't care less whether he drives a Ferrari or not. The owner, the owner of the company. For him to have a Ferrari or not does not really make a difference in his life. So in that kind of way of thinking, it's like when you do have something, the value and the interest of what you wanted disappears. But what is it? What's really changing? That's what I'm trying to get to. What is changing? It's your mind. It's your attitude, your perspective is changing. You know? So really, the more you investigate, the more clear it becomes. But then once you pinpoint it and you grab it, it loses that much importance. So for example, if I get obsessed with something, that thing is really important, but I don't really challenge myself to understand why, for me, that's important. Then I can't really identify that, and then I get so attached to that concept. But the moment I identify and I challenge it and I say, okay, this is like that, then it starts losing importance a bit, and then I can really flow with it more. Or I can make the right decision. I can realize that maybe that decision was corrupt. It wasn't pure. But of course, you have to be very familiar with your mind. Your mind is, so basically, you are your best friend or your worst enemy. That's how it is. And it's up to you. So you can feed positive things, or you can feed negative things to your thoughts or to your words or whatever it is. So whatever you feed, that's what's going to prevail. Whatever you give importance to, that's what's going to prevail. So if you overvalue negativity, negativity is going to have a lot of importance in your life. And that's the path that you're going to follow. If you value positivity, that's what's going to be important. So for example, any news or anything that happens, your attitude, your perception is really the decision maker. Because you give it the concoction, no, what's it called? The label or the color? The condition, yeah, yeah, the condition of being positive and negative, right?
Concept.
The concept, characteristic, yeah. But in the end, it's you who give that color. In Spanish, we say todo es de color, right? Everything is of color. But we have to give it that color. Yes.
You're talking about, like decision making.
Yeah.
In English, we use the word like, we have agency, right?
We have what?
Agency,
Agency.
the ability to take responsibility, right?
Mhm.
Self-agency. And when we make decisions, there's results or outcomes.
Mhm.
And I recently read a book, which is a completely different field, called Thinking in Bets.
Thinking in?
In bet, apuestas.
I'm bets. Okay.
There's a
Apuestas.
psychologist who decided to go become a poker player for a while.
Oh, wow. I bet he is quite successful.
And tried to why do some people make better decisions and pressure, right?
Mhm.
Like potentially a lot of money on the table, et cetera. And she came up with a conclusion that as humans, we have a tendency to, she uses the word resulting, that we judge whether a decision is a good decision or a bad decision, looking back, at the result, right? Whereas we could have, you never have necessarily, unless you're enlightened, perfect knowledge, you can't see the future. All you have is like your gut, in front of you, your intentions as to why you're gonna do it.
Mhm.
And there's sometimes just, because since we don't know the future, we would potentially call it luck, but you can't go back and judge the quality of your decision necessarily by the result.
Yeah, because you don't really know if that's, but that's the thing. Do we really want to know the future? I don't want to know the future. Otherwise, I'd probably, how I would act and think and what I would believe would transform completely. If I knew I was going to die in 10 days, it would be very different what I would do if I know I'm going to die in 10 years. I'm like, oh, 10 days, then I wouldn't be here. I'll be with my son right now, right? If I'm going to die in 10 years, then maybe I'll be here. But that's the decision making. If you really know the future, the decision making becomes very relative in that sense. Because it's almost saying like, okay, if I know what's going to happen when I die, I might as well just, lie on the beach and drink mojitos. For some people, it'll be like that. For some people, it'll be like, oh, I have to go in a rush to a cave and meditate for the rest until I die. For some people, it'll be like that, So we don't know. And the fact that we don't know is a gift.
That's kind of what she's saying. It's like, you don't judge it by the result, you judge it by the process of which you think.
Exactly. Yes, Tom.
Mark Twain said, character is how we treat people. We have nothing to expect from.
Ah, yeah. Character is how we treat people. We have nothing to expect from. Wow, interesting. Yeah, actually, I think I remember that.
Brings up like psychology and considering attachment
Mhm.
and how there's certain people, I don't know if you've studied attachment theory at all or any of you are familiar with this, but there's these different concepts that in early childhood we have wounding. There's a great book called Attached on this and also Wired for Love that I highly recommend. And this wounding leads us to develop a secure attachment system, an anxiously attached system, or a more avoidant attached system. And so people who fall into the category of more avoidant attached systems usually actually treat the people closest to them not as well as the people who they would have to expect from. Right. So it has to do with safety, and that intimacy actually feels scary. And that closeness feels scary, getting too close.
I read something the other day, very interesting. It says, if you don't trust someone in your life, you're not going to trust anybody. Somehow it's going to affect all your relationships. Because it's in the end, if you are untrustworthy, you're going to attract untrustworthy people. But if you're trustworthy, you're going to attract trustworthy people. I don't know if you can generalize that completely. But as an idea, it's a beautiful idea, right? Because it's like you you whatever you give is what comes back to you. And the quantum mechanics or quantum physics theory is a little bit like that. It's I don't know how you could really describe it, but for me, the way I try to understand it is that we are all part of the same person living different dimensions and different times. Another way to put it is we're all drops of the same ocean. And the ocean is the collective memory or the omnipresence, right? And we are all part of that somehow. That kind of helps me to understand a little bit of this concept of non-duality, no separation. Because otherwise, you know, we are all reflections of each other, right? For me, it's happened a lot, you know, where until I'm not in a certain place in my life, certain people don't arrive or don't manifest until I'm ready, you know? And for me to be ready, then I have to go through a certain process. And only until that process is finished, then you see things in a different perspective. And then suddenly you're able to value things in a different way. I don't know. It's just from my own experience, it's like that. I think evolution is happening constantly. And we're in the process, and we're so lucky to be in it. And we have to stop searching everywhere and waiting for something and idealizing something, because everything is here already, and we're missing on that. You know, and I think it's that's why also Eckhart Tolle was so successful, because he's just saying what we already know, and people identify with that in a very simple manner. You know, and I think that I had the book, a magazine that said 100 top spiritual people in the world or something like that. Number one, I think, was Eckhart Tolle. His Holiness was like number 7. There are a few others on top, yeah. Interesting. I have the magazine in my house. I actually, it was in the Tushita Retreat Center, so when we moved it, I kept the magazine in my house. Maybe that thing is very interesting, you know, like to say, okay, that's the category they put. It's most spiritual people in the world, right? And they measure them by how many followers they have. So, anyways, but Eckhart Tolle's, what he's talking about is very simple. It's so simple. It's so easy to understand, and it helps many people. Basically, I actually read his book. I love reading these kind of books to discover, you know, the different perspectives. So in one of the books, it's called The Power of Now. I remember, I thought it was so funny. He describes how he arrived to some kind of realizations, which he was having a very bad time. He was suffering so much, da 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 da. And then one day he went to sleep really, really depressed and unhappy and da 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 da. And then somehow his ego died in the night, and he woke up in the morning and he had the emptiness realization, something like that. That's how he describes it, his process, which is beautiful, but I don't think it's very realistic. You know, that's not how things happen. It's not like, I remember in Taiwan, when I was 13 years old, I was giving White Tara initiations, Jenangs, in Taipei and in Kaohsiung. And I went down to Kaohsiung, there's one monastery of 1,000 monks called Fokwanshan. And in that, imagine 1,000 monks all eating simultaneously, and you can hear a pin drop. Amazing. So they had this mountain behind the monastery. And at the top of the mountain, they had this small kind of Shaolin little pagoda. And in that pagoda, they had a green tea. So supposedly, I don't know how many 100 years before back, there was one monk who drank this green tea and became enlightened. So since then, everybody goes up to that pagoda to drink that green tea and hope to become enlightened like that, you know? Really, it's not, I'm not kidding. It's a very touristical location where people go up there to drink green tea and see if they become enlightened or not. So I remember I went there, I drank the tea, and I'm like, I was 13 years old, right? But even when I was much younger, I was actually 6, I was 5. I remember really well. I was in the train with Basili, one of my attendants at that time. And I loved Vajrapani so much. He was my favorite Buddha, Vajrapani and Manjushri. So I'd always be doing the mantras constantly. And Vajrapani, so one day I was in the train, it was a long train ride. I was with Basili. And I had my mala and I started doing mantras, Bhajapani mantra. And then 1 mala, 2 malas, 3 mala, 4 mala, and then suddenly I start getting really angry. Like, "Ah," and then Basi's like, what's going on? It's like, I said, I already did so many mantras, but I'm not becoming enlightened yet. Why do I feel anything? Nothing's happening, you know, it's so angry. Yeah, I used to have a lot of character. I still have a lot of character, actually. But it's better hidden now. But I remember that because I truly believed that if I did enough mantras, something would change in my mind. I didn't realize that it's not about the mantras, it's about the process, the reprogramming. Like the other day, we were talking about the translation of Mahamudra. What does it mean? It means the great stamp, right? Or the universal stamp, the great seal, the great seal. And it's almost like the great programming, right? I kind of tried to give it a modern name to it. It's like the great programming. You know, it's like if you follow that, you program yourself and become Mahamudra, kind of. I don't know. It's but it's interesting, you know, if you start finding words that apply today to translate things from the past, you know, because in the end, right now, through neuroscience and quantum physics and the emptiness concept, you know, what do you call it? Vacuidad in Spanish, in Tibetan, Tombani. So that's completely coming into the same page today. You know, exactly, they're talking about the same things. My teacher was so funny. And my teacher, he raised me when I was a child. He passed away about seven years ago. But he used to tell me all the time, he's like, you Westerners, you see, you're so proud of your scientists. He says, what they're discovering now, we already discovered 2,500 years ago by ourselves, without machines, without this, without that, just sitting like that and closing our eyes. We discovered the same thing. You Westerners, you're so proud of your scientists. You have no idea. Of course, you'd be joking, you know, but you know, there's some truth in it. And I'd be like, wow, that's true, you know. How do you come to the same discovery without any machines, without anything, just sitting down in the same spot? And today it's coming together. So I feel that we are really in a golden age. We really are in a moment. I mean, we talked about it yesterday, right? We all have the merits of an emperor or an empress. Much more, actually, because we do not have to create bad karma to maintain that merit or to maintain that position, that situation. And if we're able to change those habit patterns, we can become more productive, we can become more happy, more fulfilled, more joyful, more at peace within ourselves. Because really that's what we're looking for. We're looking for inner harmony. That's really what we're looking for. In the end, human connection and inner harmony. That's basically it. And trust me, I've racked my brains a lot. I've been in and out, you know. I really feel that's really the most practical aspect that we're looking for. That everything else adds up or is complementary. And how to get there is through the warm heart, by really having a consideration for yourself, for others. Consideration. I think it's a pretty neutral word. Because you go to bodhicitta, or you go to empathy, or you go to compassion, or apathy, or what's that word? Apathy. There's just too many words to make too much confusion, you know, and then nobody gets to, oh, this is that, and this is that, and this is not enough, and this is blah, 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 blah. This is not pure. Okay, it doesn't matter. Just have consideration. I think consideration is the first step, you know, for yourself. So, for example, if you have a pattern of suffering, where you kind of, is the most familiar thing is to go around and around and like blame yourself or bash yourself, have consideration for yourself. And that's how you start having consideration for others, right? So it's much easier. It's like non-unhappiness. It's more easy to not be unhappy than to find happiness. In the end, what is happiness? It's completely relative. For a masochist, happiness is to get whipped with a bullwhip, right? That's happiness for a masochist. For me, it's not. I would not enjoy that. But that's why it's so relative, you know? For some people, joy is being with the children. For some people, joy is having the biggest yacht in the world. I don't know, you know, but in both cases, it's temporary, you know? And we can't judge which is more pure, or the person who wants to be with the children is more pure than the one who wants to. I don't know. It's not up to me. I can't judge that. That's my perception. End of story. And so it's really important also to be aware of that, you know, that we don't really know what's behind that person, what story, what they've been through. And that's why consideration is so important. You know, we judge the book by its cover a lot. I lived on the street and I met millionaires who were living on the street. A guy who was living on the street, you could have never imagined. He had what do you call that card? The one you can buy houses with? What? Yeah, was it platinum? Not platinum, the next level. Yeah, black something, titanium, or I don't know, it's like really heavy. Like, it's a credit card that weighs a ton. And you can buy, I don't know, like the $10 million house with that or whatever, with the card. Just yeah. So anyways, you're living on the street and you have one of those cards. It's like, oh, but actually, you know, this person that he was so fed up with all that. He wanted to be just because for me personally, the happiest moments of my life was when I lived on the street. I must say, I was 19. I was young, obviously, but there's a brotherhood. There's a support, an emotional support between, and it's an unconditional love and consideration for each other in the street that you cannot imagine. I've never seen that kind of level of support in any level of society. And that's why many people who live on the street live there because of a choice, because of how people treat them and how they treat others. Like I didn't have anything, you know. I mean, I decided to just live there, and I didn't have anything. And then I remember one time, one guy, he just appeared with a friend of his, and they're living on the streets. They're veterans. I mean, they're professionals who lived on the street. They saw me, and they saw that I wasn't very professional. I was still learning. And he had 4 euros in coins, and he had 1 baguette. And he broke the baguette. He gave me half of the baguette, and he gave me 2 euros, which is what he had. And I was like, no, no, no. He's like, you have to take it. He almost got aggressive with me. So you have to take it because you're new, and this is, you know, we're helping. You know, this is how it works here. When you live on the street, people help you. That's how it is. You know, and I'm like, okay, thank you. So I took, and he gave me half of what he had at that moment, and he knew me 2 minutes. Where does that happen in any level of society? I don't know. I'm not unfamiliar. Maybe in the tribes with Aborigines, the First Nation people.
It happened at Vajrapani with the founders, these people who built it here, these people who are here right now.
Yeah.
They live with nothing.
Yeah.
And they helped each other.
Exactly.
I just have to acknowledge.
Good. Exactly. That's exactly it. So,
And John and Tom and George and.
so maybe they were living on the street. I'm just kidding. Yeah, they're living in the forest. They're living in the forest. I think the forest is better. Mud.
Rattlesnakes and.
Rattlesnake. There's rattlesnakes here? Oh, wow. Anybody got bitten by one?
You know, they live
Yeah, that's
here.
one.
Rough. Baby born in a teepee. I mean,
Yeah.
they
Tom Wagner's missing. And
did that here.
you know, the other day we went to Drum Skull, the shop, the djembe shop. And the guy who founded that, he took out this album of back in the days of building Vajrapani. He had all these photos of building the huts from scratch. And it's like, we really didn't expect that, you know, to go to a percussion shop in Santa Cruz and end up looking at a photo album of Vajrapani back in the 70s. When was it? When was it that they started? 70s or is it 77? Wow. So yeah, so that's a perfect example, you know, this is, and what is the intention behind that is really to be able to create this space for us. Yeah, and right now it's for us, right? We are others as well. But right now this space is being used. And the purpose was that, to be able to create a community, to create a union, to have the human connection where we can evolve together, we can learn together, we can really support each other emotionally and physically.
I came in 78 and I never had the experience in my whole life, even close, people knocking themselves over, tripping over each other to be more generous, more kind, helpful. Anyway.
That was the happiest time of your life? Good. It still is? Oh, it's still is. So it's still happening. It's still happening. Wow. You see, that's the attitude right there.
I want to just say that when we're talking about Buddhist practice, Lama Rinpoche and Lama Yeshe talking about, and you as well, talking about consideration for oneself and for others, and primarily the idea of bodhicitta, the idea of taking for others, doing it for others, always doing it for others. Because of where we lived, in a teepee, having to walk up a steep hill with 2 little children and having had to carry our water. The only way for me to get up that hill was to think that I was taking others up that hill. So the Buddhist practice, mind training, works.
Mind training. The
It's
science of the mind.
exactly what you were saying. It's exactly that. So it's moving that, just thinking like that, just thinking like that changes the,
Oh, yeah.
oh my God, I can't stand this. Oh, it's hot. There's slime in my eye. Not like that. It's like you said, you have to check every moment and transform.
Yeah, exactly. The attitude and the perception, it changes your life. Because any situation that comes to you, if you have the right perception and the right attitude, that situation can always be a positive one. Always, constantly, throughout your whole life. And not only that, you can actually create that example for other people to be inspired, and you can share that happiness. People will be happy around you.
See, it's possible. They take inspiration from an example
Mm-hmm.
of the possibility of good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dear, he says the single most best thing you can do in this life is be an example.
Be an example, yeah. Yeah, that's what I tell myself when I'm with my son. Because I know that's the best way to teach him. I can say something a million times. If I don't follow the example, he's not going to listen. You say, why should I listen? You don't do that. Right? So, yeah, the example, I think it's a great way to treat oneself and to treat others. Sorry, I forgot about the pee-pee break. Are you, okay, how long do we have? How much? It's almost finished. 15. Okay, yeah, we'll wrap it up. I'll do the question, the
yeah.
online question. Are there any more online questions?
Few. So the first one was about the extent at which choice of career matters. Or is it better to focus on just training the heart and mind of compassion and wisdom into your motivation of body, speech, and mind?
So that's very interesting because I think we can talk about the Japanese concept called ikigai, which is it's the translation would be the purpose, was it? Purpose of life, yeah, mission of life, something like that. That's the translation of ikigai. So ikigai basically has different aspects. So one of the aspects is what you're good at. The other aspect is what you're passionate, what you enjoy doing. Another aspect is what brings you finance. And another aspect is what you offer to society. So you bring those 4 things together and you find your ikigai, which is your purpose in life or your work kind of thing. So that's for me, I was trying to look for that and I didn't know what it was until I said, okay, I think it's hack retreats. Because it's everything I've learned, everything I've experienced, and I'm offering it, So I'm giving something to society in a way. I'm good at it because it's been my whole life. I've been grew up in that, and it does bring some kind of finance, to the centers, to myself, to everybody who participates in the administration, and of course, what was the 4th one? Oh yeah, enjoy, of course, and I enjoy it so much because really, the people when they come together, and you start to see how everybody kind of like emotionally supports each other, helps, like it opens up. It's just so beautiful. You know, because on day one, it's people are still a little bit skeptical, but by the time day two comes, people open up a lot. And for me, the satisfaction of seeing the process from day one to day four really makes me feel fulfilled. So basically, I discovered my ikigai like that, slowly. It took me about 10 years, maybe 8 years. It started in Land of Missing Buddha. My first hack retreat was there, Land of Missing Buddha. It wasn't called hack at that time. But you see that it slowly takes form, you know, so you just have to interiorize, really meditate on that, and then boom. But really, I think, what's his name? Alan Wallace? No, the other one, not the Buddhist one.
Oh,
Alan Watts. Alan Watts. He's not the Buddhist one, right? Then, yeah. So Alan Watts, he said, the secret in life is to enjoy working. You know, so for example, if your work is something that you enjoy, then it's not work. It's what we were talking about yesterday, right? Effort. If you enjoy it, it's not really an effort. It's a different type of effort if you're enjoying it. You know, so really find something that you can enjoy and that you have passion for. Because many people in life, they have a work that they don't really enjoy, and then they, you know, it's a bit of suffering, you know. I mean, if you're doing something you don't really want to do, but it's like you accept it because apparently it's like the best thing that you could have, you know. It's a little bit like sometimes some couples, they stay together because it's the most convenient, apparently, but actually on the long run it's the least convenient. It's a little bit like that. We fear the unknown. We don't know what could happen. We are scared of being in a situation where you don't have anything, you know, like. That's why, in a way, I put myself in that situation of living on the street, because I wanted to have that experience. I wanted to be able to let go of everything and not know when is my next meal going to come from. And that was the happiest time in my life, still up to today. Well, apart from when my son was born, I really have very much fun with my son. But apart from that, probably my happiest moments are when I was living on the street. So I don't know if I could do it now because I'm a bit older and my organs would suffer. Yeah, I mean, even when I was 19, I would sleep on the floor with the cardboard, no pillow, nothing. And in the morning, you would stiff. It was, you know, it was not easy. Even just the you know, all the nose, the face, you know, everything, you know. And then, you know, showers and anyways, it's complicated. But yeah, I wouldn't do it now, maybe. But I would go, for example, to Vajapani for a retreat. Yeah.
Would you like to be booked?
Maybe this year. Oh, yeah, why not?
Why not?
You have to talk to Tom. Why not? This year they still have space for one more hack. I have space for one more hack. But right now, 3 is, I think, is good. We could aim for next year, maybe, for Vajapani. I would like to this year. This year is good, the dragon year. And the 50-year anniversary of Vajapani, I think it's powerful years here, you know. What? 40?
Well, we were 77, so we got 3 years before it's 50.
Oh, okay, so it's 47, yeah. So it's now 3 years. But in the end, it's all relative, you know, like 50 years, 1 year, 5 days, you know. Okay, so maybe one last question. Yes.
Well, to follow up on that, there
Right
was a
on.
question.
Oh, they asked question. More questions, Kim?
Oh, there was 2 more.
Okay, good, awesome.
So the other one was, could also repeat, when the Mexico's hack is scheduled?
By the way, I just want to do a question. How do people like the name hack or not? Like, does this sound bad?
Yeah.
It's good, really? But at the beginning, it's like, you know, but it does call your attention.
Yeah.
It does call your attention because you're like, huh, what is that?
Figuring out how to
make something work or work around.
Right. Because there's another word.
People use it in a bad way.
Yeah. Oh, he's a hack. It means his job is illegitimate or something like that.
So
What does it mean?
These are fraud.
It's a fraud.
The hacker that goes into your systems, like, and steals something.
Oh, yeah.
That's the bad side.
But you're
But
hacking
then there's
yourself,
the
right?
good.
Yeah.
one, which
You're hacking yourself, yeah. Or the Matrix.
Yeah,
Companies have
there's a good side of like
hackathons.
figuring out a quick way, an efficient way of doing.
I like
something
that.
different.
How to steal enlightenment.
That's how to feel enlightenment from the Matrix.
It really is, about figuring out a better way.
It's about getting in, right? You're breaking through
Software,
somebody's.
yeah.
But you're not really stealing electricity. Electricity is everywhere.
Hackathons where they
Mhm.
get their programmers to come together and try to figure out a solution. And so it's a really positive thing, but
We have like
used in a bad way.
hacker.
Oh, you're a hacker? Oh, I'm gonna ask for your services.
The HP habit and that's relates so much to where we are and what we're doing
Good.
and becoming and
Good.
it's a really great word.
Good.
Yeah, and the
Great.
word
That's just-
Being a hacker or hacking is hacking away. at-
Yeah.
Cutting. Yeah. That was actually the idea originally. Hacking the programming of our mind.
How do you
That's
hack
it.
something that you see, and that's the letter you took out. And there's a movement.
What? Sorry, what you see? And that's the letter you took out. Oh, yeah, that's right. The C. I took out the C. Concept. Is habit, alignment, concept, key. So we took out the C and the concept.
That's the secret.
There's a movement of consciousness hacking, which you might want to.
Consciousness, okay.
There's no consciousness hacking.
All right.
Yeah.
Can you take a note?
Yeah.
I'll take a note. HAK. It sounds a bit like a cult then. I'm joking. Okay, so so basically, I think also I rack my brains a lot since I'm very young, and I try to understand really. When I realize maybe everything is gray, there's no black, there's no white. Because I know many people who are a little bit like that. It's all white or it's black. There's nothing in between, and it really annoyed me for a long time in my life. And then I started analyzing, and I was like, hey, you know what? I think everything has a good side and a bad side. Everything. So therefore, everything is gray. There's nothing that's just black or just white. Anyways, that's my conclusion of things. And hack, it's a little bit like that. It's a gray. Has a good connotation, bad connotation, right? You just have to find the white and the gray. You just have to give that value to the white in the gray. Instead of saying, oh, this is white, this is black, there's nothing in between. Or it's good or it's bad. But actually everything in life has a good part, is a good, bad part. It's how you choose to see it. There's a man of God, like they say, priest, right? Who's talking about God. And somebody asked him, why did God create evil? And then the priest answered, God never created evil. God created the choice of evil. It's interesting. I think the idea is like, okay, so this, in Spanish it's not evil, it's maldad. No existe la maldad. Dios nunca creó la maldad, pero sí que creó la elección de la maldad, ¿no? So it's the choice. It's all about choices. Anyways, it's just food for thought. But I really like to touch base in all kinds of different philosophies, including Sufi, which is a branch of Muslim. I think the Quran is very interesting because they all have that golden base, that golden connection. And one of the pillars of His Holiness is religious harmony. And I feel that GTI, the Global Tree Initiative, does, in a way, help that. Because it helps the environment. So one of the pillars of His Holiness is environmentalism. And another pillar is religious harmony. And within GTI, we have all the religions working together, planting trees for the same purpose. So I thought that's so beautiful. And that's, for me, is really special, that we can actually fulfill His Holiness's wishes. And yeah, so let's keep Keep up the good work. And what was it? Did I answer the question or not?
Scheduling for the hack.
The what? Oh, yeah, yeah, that's happening for sure. We just have to find the right dates. But we'll.
The
I-
schedule.
Me queda con tu cara, we say in Spanish.
The question.
I remember your face.
I'll talk
Yeah.
the question was specifically about when is the Mexico hack?
Oh, the Mexico, I think we haven't found a location yet, but it's October, November.
Okay.
We wanted to do it in April now. End of October, yeah. But we wanted to do it in April because it's a total solar eclipse happening now in April. So I wanted it to coincide with that, but it was a little bit too early. It was too much, so we decided to make it a bit further on.
Is there a website or something?
There is, but it's still in construction. Yeah, habitalignmentkey.org. But it's still, everything is construction still. We need professional people in there, you know, so to really structure it properly. It's happening. It is happening. But yeah, we started, it's a grassroots organization. It started just like the FPMT. Okay, so the question was answered? Okay, good. And anyone last question? Oh, yeah, please.
Yeah, I'm wondering, whether there are things you kind of come up with on your own, whether things you've learned or some mix of them. When you're not like tuned into your most high self, if that ever happens,
Or never.
what, what kind of like little rituals have you made for yourself? What kind of litanies, what kind of things do you remember to reset yourself?
Good question.
Yeah. I'm kind of more interested in ones that are non-standard, but I want to hear whatever you actually do.
This is very interesting you ask because I never tell any, I haven't talked about this normally, but I mean, you know, I don't consider myself a Buddhist, right? Even though I love Buddhism and I'm learning Buddhism, probably for the rest of my life, I'll be a student and studying Dharma. But I don't consider myself a Buddhist because I prefer to be a student. But yeah, touching that, for me, it helps me, I try to connect with my inner child and my higher self. Those are my 2 points of reference. That kind of makes sense. But I do believe there's a higher self that guides me in a way of it's an aspect of myself. Everybody has that. And everybody has the inner child that's still there. So those, for me at least, it's very helpful for me. When I'm in a tough situation or whatever, then I just try to connect with those 2 aspects of myself. And most of the times they solve things for me pretty easily.
Could you just say inner child or something, and then your inner child is connected, or the process? Or, right?
Well, that's up to you. That's your thing, you know, but it's pretty straightforward. I mean, your inner child, you have it. Everybody has their inner child, you know.
I think you probably have the incredible blessing of really being able to cultivate your higher self.
No.
Right conditions. So what would be like suggestions that you would have for someone who might be a little bit newer?
Well, I don't know anything about my higher self, to tell the truth. All I know is that it's a means for me to trust. That's it. Just the fact that I believe that there's a higher self that is observing and that is guiding me in a way and sees my path and is very clear about what my mission is. Just the fact that I believe that already gives me a peace of mind. But I don't know anything else apart from that. I have zero connection or contact or whatever, nothing. But I do have that aspect where I do believe that exists. And just the fact that I believe it exists helps me stabilize. Because in the end, everything is linked. I have a little bit more hard time connecting with my inner child, to tell the truth. That is much more of a difficulty. And then don't laugh. He's smirking, sniggering. No, it's true, you know, because I need to go through a bit of therapy before I really connect completely with my inner child. There's just lots of things that are a little bit blocked there. But the higher self is more easy, you know, because I just have to think about Lama Yeshe. So it's a more easy kind of idea. I mean, I don't know Lama Yeshe or not. For me, it's very difficult to really pinpoint or accept or acknowledge. Because if I say, oh, Lama Yeshe, then suddenly my ego becomes big. And then it becomes a problem. You know, so for me, it's like Lama Yeshe, he's my guide and my best friend. But I don't identify myself with him because he's a great yogi and I'm a small potato who has no clue. I have no clue. I'm just groping in the dark, basically. I have no clue, and as I walk, I share that. For me, it's very hard to get a book and read and just repeat the interpretation of somebody else. It's very hard for me to do that. But hopefully, slowly, I can start, studying more Dharma and maybe interpreting a few things, but it's not really my style to interpret the interpretation of the interpretation of the interpretation of such and such. But I can do it at some point, hopefully, because I think it could be beneficial. But anyways, so that's that. But yeah, try to do that. Think about it, just you say, my inner child, my higher self. Just the words are enough for you to be able to identify that kind of idea, because that is part of you. So it's very easy, really, to connect. But it's not, you don't identify 100% with you. It's like your higher self, your inner child. Your inner child is pure, is innocent, is natural, The higher self is somewhere up there and he sees everything, blah, 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 blah. So just the fact of thinking that that's part of you does give you, at least for me, it gives me certain stability to feel that I'm on the right path, I'm safe, or whatever it is, that it's just, I mean, you asked, so. Yes?
Just a quick share that I work with the inner child, that's like my work. But,
Oh, wow.
It might be interesting that there's actually a Thich Nhat Hanh book on the inner child. And
Wow.
It mixes Buddhism, and I haven't actually finished it, it's on my nightstand.
What is it called? What's it called?
If you look up inner child, Thich Nhat Hanh.
Okay, I'll definitely check that out. Thank you. How are we with time? Past? Oh, so it's time. Time? Okay. No, we forgot about the people break. Sorry, so it's done.
Donna?
Yes, Jana.
It might be a silly question and others may totally already know this, but when you think of reincarnation and you're talking about your higher self and your inner child, I don't know Lama Yeshe very well, but it sounds like a Lama Yeshe kind of answer, like he would maybe say the same thing. But is that something that you would then share with Lama Yeshe, considering reincarnation? Like you guys have a connection through your higher self?
Oh, I have no idea. I'm just, for me, I always felt Lama Yeshe was very present, but I never got to hug him. So I'm still in that process.
I'm asking because you said I don't know the words you said, but you said something like, I have no connection to my higher self. And then you also said that you think you always think of Lama Yeshe and he's your best friend.
It's easier for me to relate to higher self than to the inner child. Because I have a blockage with that still in this process. Because, I mean, obviously, I grew up without any kind of emotional connection or stability whatsoever. And on top of that, it was a huge responsibility. And without the family. And a lot of expectations. And it was intense, So there's a huge process of growing up that I missed on, which I'm still catching up with. So that's one of the reasons I have a bit of more difficulty tackling the inner child concept. But the higher self is easier because since I was a baby, I was bombarded that I'm Lama Yeshe and he's a very high yogi. So conceptually, for me, it's easier to relate to, but that doesn't mean that it's real or that I really actually have a connection. It just helps me to stabilize and to be able to assimilate better. That's it.
Would you like to hear the story?
Yes.
You were 18 months old and came here for the first
Sure.
time.
Here, but take a speaker. Do you
When
have a
I
speaker?
first met you. Your first visit to that time, you were 18 months. And I was here, I had been a monk for about 7 years, but I wasn't any. I had long hair. You were downstairs, one of the tables with Lama Zopa next to you. You were dressed as a little monk at 18 months. And I came out for a blessing and, head down, hands together. And you reached out and grabbed my hair. I had long hair at that point. And you started to try to pull my hair out.
Wow, that must have been painful.
It was funny. Everybody cracked up laughing because we knew the story.
Everybody but you.
You're
You're like, ouch.
Lungs open, shaved head, as you're trying to pull my hair out, and everybody broke up laughing.
So I was your torturer.
Yeah.
That's it, that's the story? You see, I idealized your story and then I was disappointed.
Do you hear the tapping on the head though?
You didn't get the
Did you hear
message.
that part?
No, what?
You remembered him as a.
You tapped your own shaved head as you're trying to pull my hair out, and you're tapping Lama Zopa's shaved head.
Oh, because you were a monk before.
Because
Okay.
that's what the message was.
Well, but that's your projection also.
Well,
So maybe I was just used to monks and I'm like, yo, why aren't you a monk?
all laughed.
That's interesting.
Funny.
all thought that's what you were thinking.
That's so funny. A very funny story. I've told this story before, but I want to say it again about my son, that I always used to say, you're a lucky child. I used to always say, you're a lucky child because nobody expects anything from you. And he'd be like, okay, Dad, thanks. And then I would keep repeating that, like in time, and it got to a point where I would say, hey, you should be very grateful because nobody expects anything from you. Don't forget that. Nobody expects anything. Do you understand? And then one day he got fed up and he looked at me and he said, Dad, shut up. And I was like, what? Why would he say that to me? Like, I was really in shock. I was like, oh. And then I started thinking about it and I was like, wow, I was expecting him to be grateful for the fact that I don't expect anything from him. So that was the teaching. Yeah, I think, here, take the mic so we can hear. Otherwise, some people can't hear. Thank you.
The key things that you said, I was watching you very carefully, very selective. And you were in that little monk suit. And Mama Rinpoche was over at the Gompa, at the Chenrezi Gompa. Now, you were with Venerable Roger at the Chenrezi Gompa. Mama Rinpoche was here in the Gompa. And you came running ahead of Venerable Roger. And you came running, and I thought you were going to run right into the Gompa. And we're talking 18 months, okay? So not even 2. You came running, you got up to the steps, and you turned around and you sat down, and you put your feet up so that somebody would take your shoes off before you came into the Gompa. So that was like, oh, okay, that was one thing. And the other thing was, there was a woman here with a little baby in a carriage, and it had a teddy bear. This baby had a little teddy bear. And you came up and you peeked over at the carriage. And you looked and you reached in and you took that teddy bear. I thought, that's an 18-month-old. But you went like this and you put it on your head. And then you put it back and gave it to that baby.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, okay. Maybe we need the pee-pee break in the end. Should we have a pee-pee break?
So I met you when you were, I thought I was 14 months old, and my son was 2.5. And I translated for a video your mother and father were getting of an interview of the story of your conception and birth. So I was speaking Spanish, and English and Spanish anyway. My little guy was like 2.5. You were sitting in the lotus position and you were blessing him. Like you would go and bless my son. it freaked him out. Like, because he was a regular kid, but you couldn't speak yet because you were too little. But you were acting like an adult in a baby's body. It was unreal. I mean, because I had a baby, like a little guy.
Well, I was trained to do that.
How could you do that little?
But that's how I adapt to. Also, children, they are kind of like programmed so that the parents accept them.
Yeah.
You know, so babies are trained to adapt to the parents and do what to please the parents so that the parents accept them. Even nature, for example, in the baby, like the nose or the mouth makes it very similar to the father. So the first time the father sees the baby, he says, "Oh, it's my son." Just only that.
Cannot train a child 14 months to sit still. No way. I mean, I've had.
Well, like my son, he'd never ask for the phone when he's in the car, for example.
Could you get him to sit?
I can do 6-7 hours drive in the car. He won't ask me for the phone or the screen. Yeah, but why? Do you know how difficult it is these days to have a kid to sit for 6-7 hours straight without a phone or without a screen? It's impossible, literally. At least in the West.
It's also the monastery, so probably very different sort of training.
Monastery at that.
But when I was 14 months old, already people, like 16 months already, people are already prostrating to you. You know, it is a program. I mean, it is somehow I would adapt to please the people so that I'm accepted. That's how nature works. Babies, why are babies so cute? People want to protect babies because it's designed that way. It's designed for people to be protective. That, yeah, well, maybe.
One of the candidates for Geshe Control.
Oh, I met her father, actually. I met her father.
From the age of 5 till 8. And she was doing stuff like that.
Yeah, okay.
Like, I knew he was training of it. She was meditating. And doing
Okay, I stand corrected. But let's get over it.
There's something that personally affected me extremely deeply. I think I can state that most Westerners are very skeptical about reincarnation. It's one of the most difficult aspects of being a Buddhist student to incorporate into reality. So to lead up, I took care of Lama Yeshe in the last 3 weeks of his life. And he was very fascinated by my curly hair. One time I was feeding him soup, and he reached up and took hold of my hair, and he pulled me down close to his face, and he fell asleep. And I maintained this position as long as I could, but my back was breaking. And the moment I thought I couldn't stand it any longer, he woke up and released me. So fast forward to when you came here when you were 18 months, and several of us, mostly women, but not all, got to put into babysitting you, so your parents could attend teachings. So I was in what we called Adam's house at that time. That's where your parents and you were staying, and you were upstairs in a crib. And I went and got my instructions from your mother that you had a bottle, you were already sleeping, you were very sound sleep, you never woke up, I wouldn't have any trouble. So I was downstairs.
I don't have any trouble, right? Why don't I believe that?
At the top of your lungs, and I rushed up, and I was a mother of 3 grown children by that time, and I did every trick in my book to quiet you, and I couldn't quiet you. You were just inconsolable. You wouldn't take the bottle, and so I took you downstairs. Then I had the inspiration to take you outside and look at the stars, and maybe being in fresh air, and maybe that would distract you. And it did. And you were a heavy child. No, I mean, you're very lean now, but you were not lean.
I'm still quite dense.
Big bones somehow, and you were heavy. And it was hard to carry you, standing there and giving you the bottle. So I put my right leg up on the bench to support you better. And you felt, you started to doze off. And you reached up and took my hair like that. And you pulled me down and fell asleep. Wow. Who in the world would know of this incident? And that is what convinced me of the truth of reincarnation. So thank you very much for that.
Okay.
You know, it's a direct experience, and then it was my truth.
Wow. That's beautiful.
So maybe, maybe one.
I have to go. I have to go. I have to rush to the bathroom.
Or
The emergency. No, anyway.
The kitchen has cooked a
Okay,
tremendous
let's
amount,
eat.
and
Let's eat.
We don't want it to go to waste.
Let's eat. Time to eat.
Yeah.
엄마 아호.
Kelly does get-
현주 senju rinpoche magye bana geyeje gewara nyambara mebara hone hondo pewa sho gewa di nyedo dalama sangye dugyone dowara jigya male ba te sala gewa sho khande rawe khorwe shinkam di pendam dewa male jene siwan tense ge choi shabe side pardo tengyu chi. Thank you so much.
5 years ago, but this is in Spanish.
I have it. I have your book.
You do?
Really.
Yeah, so this is in Spanish.
Okay, so.
Oh, yeah, you're so. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you.
For ending. Let me cut that. Thank you.
I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank
you, thank you.
Do you wanna use the restroom this way? Restroom? Didn't I come in over here? Yeah, your shoes are over there, but you don't need them if you're going. It's okay, okay. Go.
Yeah.
We were running.